Why 75% of European Jews are hiding their identity. A recent poll conducted by the European Agency for Fundamental Rights, or FRA, has revealed a disturbing trend among European Jews, with 75% reportedly concealing their Jewish identity to avoid anti Semitic harassment and attacks. The survey, which covered 13 EU member states representing 96% of the EU's Jewish population, highlights a growing concern over what FRA director Sirpa Rautio describes as a rising tide of anti Semitism. The situation has been exacerbated by the ongoing conflict in Gaza, with 76% of respondents admitting to hiding their Jewish identity at least occasionally. Rattio warns that, quote, Jews are more frightened than ever before, and the study found that an alarming 96% of European Jews have encountered at least one anti Semitic incident in 2023. The findings underscore a pressing need for action, as Rattio notes. Quote, FRA's consultation with national and European Jewish umbrella organizations in early 2024 shows a dramatic surge in anti Semitic attacks. So, let's go to talk about what some of these findings are. So, this was again done by the European Agency for Fundamental Rights. So, you can openly go find this report and its findings. And basically, what's important to understand is that this actually it follows a trend. They did a similar survey in 2012 and 2018, but what's important to note about this survey is that the vast majority of the data from this survey was actually taken before the attack on October 7th. So the vast majority of this data is a pre October 7th world. And they only had a limited amount of data that happened from 2023 after October 7th. And so let's see. The survey ended before the Hamas attacks on October 23 and Israel's military response in Gaza. However, the report includes some data on anti Semitism collected from 12 umbrella organizations after the attacks. Some organizations report at least a 400% or more rise in anti Semitic incidents since October of 2023. And basically, it goes to show, like, I can't imagine what these numbers are gonna be once they conduct another survey that has more recent data. So they do have some data that takes into account the post October 7th world, but it's actually very, very limited. So these findings are actually better reflective of a world before that attack occurred, which I think is quite striking in a way. Because when I was first reading this news, I would think, "Oh, okay, so this is in response to the insane rise of anti-Semitism we've seen since October 7th." It's like, no, this is how Jews were feeling beforehand. So I can't even imagine what the data would demonstrate nowadays.
You know, when we say that Jews are the most oppressed, the most hated, the most targeted group in the world, we don't just say that. You know, this is based on numbers. This is real. It's the most ancient, deep rooted hatred, persistent discrimination in history. And what is surprising is how many people don't realize that. And the reason why a lot of people don't realize that is because if Jews are guilty of one thing, is that they are guilty of being successful. And because they're so successful, to a lot of people, it doesn't seem like they're oppressed because they just managed to survive and overcome all of these challenges. And to a lot of us, oppressed look like you have to be poor, or you have to live in ghettos, or you have to be lower class or something. But they have managed to somehow be oppressed but successful at the same time. So there's a lot of jealousy. There's a lot of the fact that they still have the upper hand in many industries, in many places. They have hold positions of power and influence. And people are like, how is this oppressed? First of all, their skin color, a lot of them think like, well, we have many different kinds of Jews, but some people say like, well, they look white to me, right? Because a lot of people reduce oppression and discrimination to skin color. And so it's either, so a lot of people is colorism, and for a lot of people is class warfare, right? Whether or not you're oppressed or discriminated is based on your economic status or your color status. And even though Jews are discriminated against and are hated globally because they don't have the right color and because many of them are not poor, so it doesn't fit to the traditional narrative of, or the traditional way of looking at who's oppressed. Because again, they're guilty. I guess they're guilty of two things, apparently. They're guilty of being light skinned, and they're guilty of being successful. And that's why the discrimination against Jews and the oppression against them is not recognized, even though it's the greatest one in the world.
You
Yeah.
know, that makes me think of a famous Thomas Sowell quote where he basically says like what do Jews have to do to stop being hated so much? And
Mhm.
he's like they have to fail.
Right.
They have to fail, but they can't afford to. So they have to succeed. Um and our friend of the show and frequent co-host Rivka would often say that quote to me. Um, Here's some other findings from the survey that I thought were interesting. The subtitle was "How safe do Jewish people feel?" 53% continue to worry for their own safety, and 60% worry for their family's safety and security. 62% think that the Arab-Israeli conflict affects their feelings of safety. And 75% of people feel that people in their country hold them responsible for the Israeli government's actions because they are Jewish, which I think is plain to see. As in America, for example, I can attest to the fact that there are many organizations in campuses that essentially and then campus groups, etc., essentially force Jewish participants to do a political litmus test to as a condition of their inclusion and a condition of them even publicly displaying their Judaism.
By the way, I want to echo something people are saying in live chat, and I think I actually agree with this. I think that quote might not be complete, that they have to fail, because actually, historically, when they eventually failed, it didn't make people stop hating them. It made people celebrate in their failure, and usually because they were the cause. Like, so many times Jews are used as a piggy bank, right? Because they are the people who have no, like, they didn't have a country, didn't have a standing army, didn't have people who will protect them. So they had to be creative and become skillful in other industries, right? One industry is the finance industry. So it was so good for, it was very convenient to give them the finances, because first of all, we're not sinning as Christians because we are, we're not doing any interest. They're doing it. Let them sin. Who cares? They're Jews anyways, right? But also because whenever you need money, they hold a lot of it, and you could just go take it, right? It's kind of like breaking a piggy bank, like because if you go to, if you're a king, or if you're a ruler and you're going bankrupt, blame the Jews for whatever is happening, go do whatever you want with them, take all the money that they have, and there's nobody to defend them. So that's very convenient, and everybody
Mhm.
celebrates like, hey. So instead of blaming the ruler for whatever bad is happening, he diverted the attention to the Jews. But also, the ruler managed to find a way to solve the problem by just taking the money of the Jews. And
Yeah.
nobody is going to, like, the society. By the way, this is exactly what happened with Muhammad in Yathrib as well. This story, what I'm saying, is such a repetitive story of what happens to Jews when there's money issues, that even what happened to Jews in Yathrib by Muslims, by Muhammad, was exactly the story. Anyways, I'm not going to go into details.
I don't know. I think maybe we should. I think people would find that interesting.
Well, I mean, short story is that Muhammad managed to become more and more powerful in the city Yathrib, which you know now we call it Medina to Nabi. And he noticed at first they had a peace treaty agreement with the Jews, but slowly he was like, okay, these Jews have a crap ton of money. So there were four tribes, and he kept on coming with excuses. Sorry, three tribes, and he kept on coming up with excuses for why to attack the first one and take their money, and then the second one and take the money, and then eventually, when he killed the last tribe, he started doing a complete like at least the first few he um, kicked them out of the city. The last one he just like executed. Like the based on Islamic narratives, he killed something between 300 to 700 Jews in 1 or 2 days. And like in Iran, there are Shias who sometimes go cry about this event. Do you know why they cry? The Shia
No.
Muslims, like they're crying. Okay. They cry because Imam Ali, was cutting so many heads that his arm was getting tired, right? So he was killing so many, he was beheading so many Jews. And we actually have people crying, like, oh, the holy hand of my Imam Ali. He was getting so tired cutting all his heads off. Yeah. So, yeah, people
Oh
actually
my
cry about this.
god.
People
He
actually
needs
cry
a
about
rest
that
and
event.
recovery day.
Not for the Jews, but for the tired hands of the person who's cutting
His poor
the head.
shoulders must be
Oh,
burning.
yes, and by the way,
You can't
not
make
only
this shit.
that, yes, not only that, this is the Banu Qurayza tribe. Go look it up. We actually have a. Maybe I should do a stream, guys. Should I do a stream on that day what Muhammad did? Because this is not disputed by Shias or
Yes.
Sunnis. This day is because I did a stream on the Persian channel about this day. I think I should do a stream on the English channel about this day. It's one of the most horrific things in Islamic teaching, right? And two other things that people have to know is that they Muslims brag about how merciful Muhammad was this day because they didn't kill the women and children.
Mhm.
And the way that, because like if you read the Bible, they say when they commit genocide, when they go kill the Amalekites and stuff, that you also kill the children and the women. But we Muslims, we only kill the men. And who cares about men, right? It's just men. By the way, YouTube, I'm just making stuff like I'm just not making. I mean, my this is sarcasm. I'm not agreeing with this. Okay, but everything I'm saying is part of it. Like I could, when I do the stream, I will show you the references that this is part of Islamic teaching. Okay, so yeah, so they didn't kill their children and the woman, but and they keep bragging about that. Like, look how merciful, how peaceful Islam is. That they didn't. You just committed massacre on all the men in a tribe, in a Jewish tribe, and you want us to give you a cookie for not killing the women and children, right? And they were killed for being Jews because I will show you that was the reason why they were killed, because Muslims will say otherwise, right? And they say like, oh, they were guilty, but they're doing guilt by association, because even if they were guilty, there was few of them that were guilty. It wasn't all of them but the entire tribe was killed for the guilt of a few of the members of that tribe. But the way that they decided to distinguish between children and adults was who they pulled the pants down, you know I'm not making this up. They basically looked if you have pubic hair. So they had all the men lined up. You had other grown men, Muslims, pulling the pants of Jews down. If you had pubic hair, then you would be adult and you would be executed. You would be beheaded. If you had zero pubic hair, then you would be not killed. So, by the way, that means that, I mean, I don't know how old people have to be to get pubic hair, but some boys get it at 13, 12, 14. So that would be considered an adult. However, here's the thing: what they don't mention is that what they did to the children and women, because it's true that they didn't kill the Jewish women and children. What do you think they did to them, the children that the Muslims brag about? So, they're so proud of not killing them. They sold them to slavery. They sold them into slavery and raised the money to buy horses and weapons. That's what Muhammad did. Again, This is so they are saying Islam is better than Christianity because if you read the Old Testament, actually better than Christianity, Judaism, is that when they commit genocide, they killed the women and children, and we didn't. So we have to clap for Islam for selling children into slavery instead of killing them. This is the competition that we're dealing with. This is they have a bragging right over this. Yeah, apparently.
I think you should do a full stream on that. I bet people would find
Yes,
that
we
really,
should.
really interesting.
Okay, okay. I will do a stream on that day. That was a horrible day. And I
Put
will
that on the
also show
list.
you that the Jews did nothing wrong on that day because they are saying, even if we agree with the Muslim narrative, some of the rulers of that tribe betrayed the agreement that they had with Muslims, right? But for the decision the rulers of that tribe made, they basically annihilated the entire tribe. Even if they did something wrong, that's the guilt by association that Muhammad was saying that was completely just, right? But I will show you that the tribe leaders were justified to go back on the agreement. They were being threatened from all sides, and they had nothing. They saw what happened to the previous tribes, and they thought that they're going to be next. I will show you in that stream how that the leaders of the Jewish tribes were right to actually go back on the agreement that they had with Muslims because Muhammad was not respecting the agreements that they had with the other Jewish tribes. He was coming up with excuses to basically take all their money and kick them out of the city, and they thought that they're going to be next, so they preemptively went back on the agreement that they had with Muslims. Anyways,
Um, going back
and
to this,
here's the oh, by the way, bringing in this today. If you are a Muslim today and you are following the way of Muhammad, this is your Muhammad. Okay, so imagine if you want to be what Islam teaches about Jews, and if Islam is spreading in Europe, and this is what your teachings are about Jews, then as a Jew, you have every right to be afraid. This is not fear mongering. Fear mongering is when you are scaring people for something that is not justified, like you're exaggerating the level of threat that there is. Okay, when we're not telling Jews to be afraid, we listen to Jewish people. This is what this we look at the surveys, they are already afraid. So you're fear mongering if people are not afraid and you're trying to make them afraid. It's not fear mongering when you look at data and you see that they are already afraid and you validate them. You accept that they're justified. You listen instead of tell. That is not fear mongering. And that fear is completely justified. Completely justified. And again, remember, every time we see something like this, say it with me, guys. This what does this do? You know what this does, right? This confirms Zionism. This is why we need Israel. People think like, why do we need Israel? Jews can be safe in Europe. Jews can be safe in the United States. No, they can't. No, they can't. History shows that it's always possible that where Jews feel safe at that moment, it can turn on them. It can turn on them. This is why they need their own country. This is why we need to have a country that always protects Jews. And this is why we need Zionism. This is why being anti Zionism is being anti Jew. Anti Zionism is anti Semitic. Anyways.
well, that was actually a good segue into what I was going to talk about next because in before this story came out, there's actually been several high profile statements and articles coming out recently. For example, the the what's his title? Is he the chief rabbi? The Grand Synagogue of Paris chief rabbi Moshe Shibag basically is saying there is no future for Jews in France. And he's saying, I tell everyone who's young to go to Israel or go to a more secure country. You can't be in France anymore, which is so startling and so scary. And basically there was an article by our friend Armin, Catherine Perez Shakdam, talking about a new exodus that the West is losing its Jews, and there was another article by the prominent writer from the Netherlands, what's his name, Leon de Winter, talking about in his prediction, there will be no Jews in Europe by 2050. Was it in
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't agree with that.
yeah, saying last year 1,100 French Jews left for Israel. This year there will be 4,500. Since 1972, over 100,000 French Jews have moved to Israel out of half a million. Before 2012, only 500 Jews left for France each year. The numbers have since multiplied tenfold. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
there's just echoes of this everywhere. Like the a spokesperson for the Jewish community in Malmo, Sweden, declared that Sweden's third largest city could lose all of its Jews by 2029. Meanwhile, in London, conservative rabbi candidate Arnie Sanders has been invited to speak by the Bilal Mosque in Manchester. The Sanders was then attacked. Oh, that was crazy. Um, and it just goes through, yeah. And then, meanwhile, in England, Samuel Hayek, president of the Jewish National Fund, shocked England, saying Jews have no future in the United Kingdom. Said Hayek, who's lived in the United Kingdom for 4 years and is one of the country's most famous philanthropists. And basically, it's just very scary because there's a saying in France that says, if the Jews leave France, the country will be left with pain noir, the black bread of desolation. And there's several prominent writers writing about basically how anti-Semitism is important as a specific hatred to track and call out, because in a way it's a canary in a coal mine. And this goes far beyond the Jewish people. And if you want to talk specifically about the Jewish people, it's like this is a community that has contributed incredibly to our countries of origin. Like, I, especially as an American, like Jewish Americans have contributed so much to the progress and innovation of my country. It's freaking insanity, like how much they have contributed to the success that America is today. So the idea that these countries are going to lose the benefits that come with this specific community is quite worrying as a minimum. And it's so crazy because, like, I personally know people who are the children of Holocaust survivors that left Europe many years ago because of anti-Semitism for the United States. So this was already happening. There were already Jews leaving Europe as a whole because of the anti-Semitism they were experiencing. And now look at it.
Yeah. By the way, Susie, this is a response to people like Muhammad Hijab and some other people who say, like, what they say, why didn't we just give Jews after the Holocaust? Why didn't we just give them Germany? Right? Why not just, like, it was Germany's fault that this happened to them? Like, just cut a piece of, why do you have to come to a Muslim land and give them a land there? If it's Germany's fault, just cut a piece of Germany and give them Germany, right? This shows you, I mean, the first reason is because Germany is already a country. You don't cut away nation states. How would the citizens of an already existing nation states be willing to cut away pieces of their country? When the Jews went to Israel, the Ottoman, that place was not it was not a nation state. That place was the perfect place to create a new country because there were countries being made there left and right. That place belonged to the Ottoman Empire, and that Ottoman Empire fell. So legally, it was easy to get behind creating a new nation state there. How could you? What political power? What political capital do you need to have to be able to break away parts of an already existing and established nation state? That is impossible, and that's something that we shouldn't even be standing for. One thing that we advocate here is to protect every country's border integrity. So there's that. But so that one being that, Second is this, because look, because Europe is not a safe place to rely on for Jews. Nowhere, neither is anywhere else, especially after World War II. Like, imagine the insanity of somebody who's suggesting that. After World War II, many Germans still supported Hitler. And you want, in the middle of all that anti-Semitism, you wanted to create a place where all the Jews will come? This is arguably the best, set to the best way to get to a second Holocaust. After, imagine if we don't know what direction Europe was going to go. There were so many anti-Semitic people already there already. Did you think that the world order will come and Europe will go in this direction that is now a powerhouse against intolerance? I mean, not as much as before, but at that point, that would be an insane suggestion. The Jews were still surrounded by their enemies. I mean, even the British were supporting Israel because they wanted to kick the Jews out. Even the British after World War II, they were supporting Zionism because, like, yeah, let's get rid of these people. That's why they were supporting Zionism. So in that environment, in the middle of all these people who hate Jews, you want to create a country that Jewish people will go to for protection? That is insanity. What, without referring to any religious arguments, because people think that Israel's foundation was based on religious arguments. It wasn't. Zionism was a purely secular movement. But I could defend the creation of Israel, I could give you a list of 10 different good reasons why it was the best idea, that I'm so glad it worked, without any reference to anything religious. Anyways.
It's really interesting. I learned yesterday because I was talking to a friend of mine that apparently Germany has a special like repatriation process for descendants of people of Jews that had to flee Germany before World War II. So one of my friends, he's like, "Oh yeah, like I'm working on getting my German citizenship, like on that basis." I thought that was so interesting. Spain has a similar concept where there's a special program for certain Jews that they can repatriate to Spain, and we're talking hundreds of years later.
Yeah, well, they should. They were citizens there. They should be able to get it back.
Well, I mean, at the time of the expulsion of Jews, I don't think the concept of citizenship as such
Well,
existed,
okay.
but
I mean, it did. Citizenship. I mean, no, it did. I
okay.
mean, it did since it's since the French Revolution. It goes way back.
So do we want to show that video that I found that
Oh
is
yes,
along the lines of
yes. Let me see what.
this news story?
Okay, this is. Yeah. So what is
So
this?
this is in France. So this is all going to be in French. I don't think it's Do you think we should pause and read it like every single time that they have subtitles, or just play it through?
Well, can you give us a context for what we're about to watch so people who understand what's happening? So just tell us
Um
what's going to happen. Yeah.
Basically, this is like I guess like a public service announcement. I don't or some sort of campaign, and it follows the perspective of a young man living in France watching one of his family friends who's Jewish progressively like hide their identity, and his like witnessing of this. That's the
Okay.
context of this video.
Okay. Okay. So we're not going to read the subtitles, guys. Just read the subtitles. And for people who are listening, just know that this is the story. Somebody noticing a Jew just in France, just having to hide their identity. So just watch this. Let's watch this. Oh, by the way, this had emotional music behind it. So I went and used AI to keep the vocals and remove the music. So just imagine an emotional music going with this while you're watching.
Monsieur, ça va? Voilà.
Allez, ça suffit. Enlevez-moi Cohen, hein. Des livraisons, VTC, boîte aux lettres. Je vais plus en entendre parler. Et on met quoi?
Sissoko, c'est très bien par exemple.
Mais arrête-toi avec ton Sissoko.
Monsieur.
Wait, so I don't understand what happened. What is he? Is he trying to hide his name? Can you explain?
Yeah, exactly. So they're
Okay, so
taking
because
Cohen off of their delivery items, and he's joking with them. Oh, you should make it be my last name, Sissoko. Like he's joking with them, and then he sees like his
right,
Jewish friend like also hiding his name, and then here they're taking the mezuzah off their door.
right. So they're hiding their Jewish name. Okay.
Dans la rue, on peut pas la porter.
Pourquoi?
Faut pas se faire remarquer apparemment.
So they don't wear
Je les
the
abonne, on les
necklace.
abonne aussi.
Vous allez à la synagogue ce soir ou pas?
Dis pas ça aussi fort.
Merci, madame.
Oh, so they're not going to a synagogue. She's hiding her Star of David necklace, and when they go to a Jewish store, when they buy food, the plastic from that store that had Stars of David, they're throwing that away so that they carry the food in something that doesn't show that they're Jewish.
C'est quoi cette fac là? Qu'est-ce qui se passe?
Elle va plus du tout en cours, elle a peur, je sais pas ce qu'il y a.
Colis pour les Dubois.
C'est nous, Dubois.
Attends.
Oh, somebody painted. So I'm just going to explain to the people who are just watching this with us. Somebody painted on their wall, Jews live
Tu
here.
peux aller fermer le rideau, chérie, s'il te plaît.
Mais non, fermez pas, madame
Mais
Cohen.
regarde, il y a les voisins là, il y a de l'autre côté.
C'est pas grave s'ils vous voient. Madame, laissez ouvert, s'il vous plaît.
Allez.
Yom HaShishi Vaychulu Hashana.
Oh, so they're doing the Jewish ceremony. He was like, don't close. They closed the curtains because they were worried that people will see that they're Jews, and he was asking them to leave the curtains open, and she was like, no, just close it. Okay.
Wait, was that the end of it? I don't think that's the end of it.
Yes, that was the end of it.
Oh, okay. I remember more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was really powerful. In terms of like the countries that I'm most worried about in Europe, it would definitely be France and the UK. Oops.
Really? Why?
I mean, because in terms of the level of attacks and events that I've seen in those two countries, those are the most striking to me. I mean, in France, we've talked about multiple stories where women were raped because they're Jewish.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. And then in the UK, there's just so many, there's numerous instances. I mean, there was a member of parliament that was the representative of Golders Green, which is a historically Jewish neighborhood, who himself was a gay man who had to quit his job as a member of parliament because they couldn't guarantee his safety over the threats to his life because he was challenging the Islamist narrative like around Israel in the Jewish community. Like the government can't even, they're not correctly protecting their own MPs.
Insane, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
So
sure
that's my
higher
impression.
migration will solve that problem. Okay. Yes. Let's bring more people with these horrible views in. That should solve the problem. Do you know who makes the most amazing, gorgeous, and other adjectives that I can't use here on YouTube, blasphemous art ever? We do! And for some reason, we are giving it away for free. Download them now using the link in the description before we change our mind.